All right, hello DevTO. My name is Christopher. I'm here with Ernst and Maya. And I guess the question for tonight was, what is security blanket? And tonight we'd like to share with you, I guess, a bit of our story and where it began. It began, I guess, on June 30th, and we'd like to play a quick video from that day from the PayPal Battle Hack for Toronto, 2014.
Oh, you don't have sound on the. There's no sound on the phone.
But anyway, it's kind of volume.
We're building an international hub. Eventually, we're looking to help meet more people in the city. First place prize, security blanket. What we presented here today, I mean, it's a very compelling, story, and I think we really want to get behind this,
First prize, pretty awesome.
We won about 100,000. We invested in ourselves.
Yeah, so the guy jumping around like an idiot, that was actually me. But that was pretty amazing, and we had a great time at Battle Hack. And we won. So that's why we got the invite here today. Thank you very much, Kevin, for having us up here to talk a bit about, I guess, what we hacked together and that sort of thing. And we want to talk, I guess, about, first off, what we hacked together. Mine are going to talk a bit about what we did, and then we'll talk a bit about where we're going from here afterwards. So we're going to do a quick demo.
So basically, security blanket is a little hardware beacon guy that you put on your kid, and if your kid goes missing, you can report your child lost, and then we can track the child and work with law enforcement to get your kid back home safe. It looks about like this. This is our prototype. We're going to be getting our official, real tooled model hopefully this week, and yeah, we're very excited about it. So we have an app, which you guys can't really see, but looks kind of like this. You can add your children's information and kind of hook it up to your beacon. It'll auto-detect your beacon. You can auto-populate as much or as little information about your child as you want. So height, weight, gender, eye color, that sort of stuff. If you're comfortable putting it in, you can. If you're not comfortable, you don't have to put it in at all. So I have a kid in here, so say my kid has gone missing, I can just hit the report lost button. It asks me for a lot more information, where she was last seen, what she was wearing, that sort of stuff. I can fill all that in, report, and now it's sent our server a missing child report, and yeah, that's the other important thing that I almost forgot. Every phone with our app installed is acting like an invisible kind of child detector. So the person whose phone it is has no idea that their phone is looking for a kid, but when it finds the kid, it calls Ernst.
So, any phone with the app installed will be a detector for these devices, and once they're detected, you can be walking around. It's passive. You can have it in your pocket. So anyone who installs it, they don't need to buy a beacon. They can just support finding lost kids, and then we get notified anytime one of these devices is detected by anyone with the app installed. Then our server gets the information, and it calls our phones. Then we can communicate that information to the parents and get law enforcement involved if necessary. Yeah, that's pretty much how it works so far. Yeah.
So it's a pretty ambitious hack, I guess, from our side. We're basically going to turn like every smart device in North America into a lost child detector. So that's going to require a lot of work. Fortunately, there are literally hundreds of millions of smart devices in North America to start with. And all we need to do is get our app into a small fraction of them. And once we've got that density of network, it means that we'll be able to find lost kids like coast to coast. And that's the entire plan. So it's pretty ambitious.
Yeah, I guess when the beacons are detected, it knows where you are, like where your phone is.
While we transfer your call.
And then, any beacon that's detected will be displayed on a map, and we can then relay that information to the parent. So we use the phone's location, their GPS location, to report back to us, and then we can relay that information to families and law enforcement.
So because it's DevTO, we want to talk a bit more about just the hack and just the product. We want to talk, I guess, about some of the questions that we got, I guess, following the actual hackathon itself. Just some of the basic ones that we went through. We get all the time, I guess, from the hack itself, which is pretty cool. So this is our team, what a security blanket, it's an app, and a hardware device. So what we learned about hackathons, this is a group of developers, so I'm not going to go into the usual stuff. I just want to, I guess, share with you what we did, I guess, in order to win the hackathon. And I guess the first and most important thing is we went in there planning to win. We had an idea that we had even before the hackathon, and when PayPal had their events, and they wanted to do something, which is really cool of them, by the way. I thought this was awesome. PayPal could have done anything they wanted to, and they decided for our hackathon, we wanted to do something that benefits your local community. So good on them for doing that, and we were all in for that as well. So we went in there to the hackathon with a very fully defined product in mind. So we had sat down, in coffee shops and talked for literally hours on end about like what we had in terms of tools, what technologies were available, and that sort of thing. So we spent like dozens of hours even just figuring out what we wanted to do. And then once we kind of had a good idea of what we wanted to go in with, there was always the possibility we could throw a curveball at the last minute. But we also went in with a really, really well thought out idea in terms of like what we were going to code. Our team was really nice and cross-functional. We had developers that do the iOS, the client side, we've got web, and we've got server. So we had all the pieces and all the skills necessary to do it. And even before the hackathon, we sat down with a very clear plan in terms of like who was going to code what was going to be required, and we scaled the amount of work that we wanted to do for our hack accordingly. Because it's only 24 hours, you have to realize you're going to be more productive in the first part than the last part because you get tired. I got super tired by the end. And once the gong went and everybody started coding, our team didn't talk. It was like open the laptops, get down to work, and we knew exactly what we were doing from the first minute. Other teams were still like running around trying to figure out like, oh, what are we going to do, and figuring things. We just went, which was really, really good. Because we finished, I want to say about like 6 hours ahead of schedule before the end of the hackathon, and that time proved absolutely incredibly useful for us. Because we spent the last 6 hours, basically just fine-tuning the presentation itself. You can have the best hack in the world, the best product, the best idea, but if you can't present it on stage to a group of people, then you're going to have a really tough time winning. And the last part of what we, I guess, had helped us win, I think, was the fact that we thought a lot about how the winners of themselves were chosen. Once you understand like the score sheet in terms of like what's going to be happening and who the people are that are sponsoring the event, then we wanted to make sure that our hacks and our presentation really addressed all the different points. So in the case of PayPal, they want to do something for goods, we want to highlight those things, we wanted to support the people that went along with it and the other technology skills that's, really came together to put the whole thing together. So it wasn't just about having a great hack, it was also about having the right type of product and being able to present it really, really well. So that's what we felt really made our presentation a lot different. And staying awake the entire time really helped a lot too. We wouldn't be able to do everything in less than 24 hours if we fall asleep. So we talked a bit already about, I guess, what security blanket is, and we've done the demo, which is really awesome. And after the hackathon was over, which is pretty good, we thought, this is awesome, we won, now what? And that's where the rest of the story, I guess, comes from security blanket. Since then, and based on the response we got from winning, which is definitely fantastic, but also from the response of the crowd, people come from saying, this is a really great idea. Hang on, you're going to find lost kids all across North America. That's It's awesome. So we talked about it, and we decided that at this point in time, Security Blanket, we are going to try and take this to market. So I guess today we are in a position that we can finally announce that we are T-minus 22 days and counting from the Kickstarter for Security Blanket. And we're going to make this a reality if we're fully funded. If we're fully funded. So we're hoping. And ever since we've done this, over the last, I guess, like 12 weeks since the end of the hackathon, we've been busy like night and day, like crazy. It's been just insane. What we're doing for this isn't just like a software thing. This is actually a hardware beacon, which I showed you earlier, this actual device. And a couple of things we've learned along the way in terms of launching a hardware startup, I guess at this point, we wanted to share with you guys here today. The number one point being, don't do it. Hardware, there's a reason why you do software, and because hardware is way, way more difficult. Software, you can hit a button, you can deploy it globally in seconds. You know, so if you got the choice between a hardware and a software solution, like hands down, oh my goodness, go for the software solution. It is so much easier, it's so much better. And your market, your target audience, your target market is going to be far, far greater than what you had before. But if you decide you want to do a startup, and if you decide that you really want to make sure that you do something that's hardware-based, I'm happy to say that it's easier now than it ever has been before. The amount of resources that are now available, even specifically right here in Toronto, this is fantastic. I've been blown away in terms of like the number of different companies and support services that are now available to startups for hardware specifically right here in Toronto. It is literally easier than ever. There are people out there that are willing to help you and accelerate you and mentor you, and this has become a real mecca, especially for wearable technology. I had no idea that Toronto was like this, but it's not just software anymore. The startup community for hardware in Toronto is just fantastic. So I highly recommend a lot of good things out there. It's expensive. It's more expensive to do a hardware startup than it is software for obvious reasons. But it's also not as expensive as you thought. Again, there are other systems out there that help you with like 3D printing and other things like that that really make it a lot more cost competitive to do a hardware startup in the first place. In terms of like when you do decide to get into a hardware startup, it's cross-functional or die. You need to have people that do more than just the code. You need designers, the mechanical engineers, the electrical engineers, and firmware. People that do firmware, which is like in some low-level code sometimes. If you don't have all those things together, it's really, really a lot harder. In the case of Security Blanket, we're in a kind of a different position, I guess, than some other startups, I guess. We are not just crowdfunded via Kickstarter, and hopefully in a couple of weeks, but we're also like crowd validated. We would not have done this, I believe, if we hadn't actually just won the PayPal developer competition. But having the response from the community has been amazing. So we really already feel like we're substantially validated by the crowd as well. And in our case, like we're also proud of everything. Our entire product now relies on the fact that there are like literally millions of smart devices out there. And that's something that has really like never existed before. And just a quick survey. Does anybody up in here in this room not have a smartphone? Anyone here not have a smartphone? Out. This is you can say. But the fact that your real sneer's got that, that's incredible. So, and that's what makes this whole thing work. A bit of hubris though, in terms of like what we've learned, and I want to share with you, sure, but until, have we actually learned enough? We won't know until actually this Kickstarter campaign. So check us out in a couple of weeks if we're doing well. If we're not doing well, just forget everything I just said. So, and again, like, because everybody has these mobile devices, it's enabled what we had as a product. And I think that's amazing in terms of a sign of the times. Global distribution and scale is a really amazing thing. Not just the hardware, but also like the power like that place that Kickstarter gives you, and being able to promote your product on the web in the first place. So really, that's amazing. If you do decide, I haven't scared you off now, you do want to decide to do your own hardware startup, that sort of thing. A couple of things I wanted to throw at people just to what we've learned along the way in our short time doing this. Number one, more so than anything else out there in terms of hardware startup, you're going to need passion. If you don't have that, then it's not going to work. If you don't really believe in what you're doing, it's not going to work. You'll get stopped at every single point along the road. The second part is to really be humble. If you think you know everything, you're not. You certainly don't. And the number of people that have come together to help us and given us, tips and mentorship and insight and information has been just outstanding. I can't believe the amount of people that wanted to be there and help us out as well. So be humble in your approach and accept the support of others. You cannot do something like this alone. And in terms of us, we put a really great team together. We would not have been successful if we didn't have one. A couple of contradictory notes. Don't listen to anybody else. Secondly, listen to everybody else. When I say don't listen to everybody else, you're going to get a lot of people that will say, oh, well, doesn't something like that already exist? Isn't that already out there? Isn't it kind of already been done? And if I had $1 for every time that somebody said something like that, I wouldn't need to have a startup, or to be a rich man. But conversely, do listen to the people that have gone through the same thing before, people that have got the time and the experience and have done these things. That has been absolutely invaluable in terms of putting our stuff together. So don't listen to anybody else, even me. Make your own path. And after the end of it, if I haven't scared you off yet about hardware or startups, no, good, because you shouldn't be afraid. Now is probably an amazing time in history for us to go and do things that are not just software-based, but for the first time ever to do hardware-based. The support services are there, and you can achieve amazing things now, even in hardware. One of the cool things I like about it is that for a platform like an Apple iPhone, where you've got literally 500,000 apps in the App Store, that seems like a pretty saturated market. I mean, it's not really all that saturated yet. But conversely, if you think about the chips for a small wearable or Bluetooth device that you can custom design, well, it's nowhere near happening, I can tell you that. It's like the undiscovered country. It's like the wild, wild west. And you can do code on devices that does amazing things with sensors and talks to the real world. And that's something that is really, really rare. The number of chips that are out there, the support services, again, and SDKs that are available for good hardware development are amazing. So hardware is the great new frontier, especially in terms of wearables. And by the way, Toronto has become a mecca in many ways for wearable technology. I didn't even know this was kind of even larger than Silicon Valley. I'm not sure if that's true just or not, but it is really a strong presence here in Toronto. So, last thing I guess I wanted to talk about was if you do decide to go ahead with a hardware startup or even a hackathon idea. One of the most important things is your name idea. I'm just curious today with the way that I come up with ideas. Usually involves a coffee shop and a lot of caffeine. But a couple of the things, and of course you feel free to do your own thing, but this is how I come up with my own stuff. I'm a huge believer in synthesis. I don't believe that there are any new ideas. I believe that all new ideas are just composites of two previously existing ideas. The trick in terms of coming up with something new and awesome is finding out which two pieces to put together that have never been put together before to generate something really new and amazing and awesome. In our case, obviously it was smartphones, and the fact that everyone's got one security blanket. Also, emerging technologies are right. Like I said, the chipsets and the hardware that are out there right now. These are pieces that have never been put together before with previous things. So this is an amazing place to start thinking of new ideas. Look at the new technologies that are available. Look at the new chips that are available. Pick something that exists that existed previously. Even if it's dog walking or pizza delivery, it doesn't matter. Put that together with new technology, and you've got something that could be awesome. And it's a classic version of coming up with ideas that I like. It's the idea of problems versus features. If you keep your ears open in terms of when people talk about a problem that they have, it's an opportunity to solve that problem. Think about something new. You don't always have to go the second route, which is offer features, which people don't know what they want until later on. So that's my personal idea of how I go with ideas, and hopefully that'll help. I guess lastly, to wrap it up, where do we go from here? Any ideas? One of the cool things about the security blanket, ever since we launched it, is that people have been coming up to us and saying, that's really cool, but did you think about this other thing? So ever since we did this concept of serendipity, it's been ever present ever since we did the hack. We've been talking to for example, law enforcement, Ernst & Young, the police actually here in Toronto, and they were talking about, could you use your product for doing grid searches? And we thought, no, we hadn't thought about it, but that's a pretty awesome idea. What if we give one of these security blanket beacons to an Alzheimer's patient, and who go missing, by the way, on a weekly basis in some cases, and take takes 20 officers to do a grid search the old-fashioned way, like 20 feet abreast walking around the neighborhood. What if we could just, have a bunch of phones walking up there? Wouldn't that be amazing? What if we recorded the positions that people had already searched in? What if we generated a heat map? We could do grid searches for somebody that's lost far, far more effectively. In fact, at a moment's notice, we could have 20 people go download the app, go out in the street and start walking around. So after we talk to the police, they're like, no, yeah, you should do this for us. And we're like, okay, we'll get on that. So serendipity has been a really powerful force for a security blanket ever since the launch. Things like this, like did you think about? So even if you don't have a fully formed idea for your hardware startup, I would say go and do it anyway, because if you build it, the ideas will come and people will help you, not if you're in stealth mode. The last thing I want to bring up was quadcopters, because who doesn't like quadcopters? Going back to the idea about about putting two ideas together, what do you get when you combine a quadcopter with a security blanket beacon detector? Well, instead of just doing a grid search, what if you put out 4 phones, attach the quadcopters, and spin them up around the area? You can cover literally square miles of area looking for somebody in a matter of minutes. So that would be so awesome to see if I had to put some of these on order. So that's pretty much it, I think, for our presentation. And again, we're going to Kickstarter in about 22 days, so please check us out. Please support us. We are literally, in this case, nothing if it wasn't for our supporters, if it wasn't for people coming up and downloading the app and saying, hey, this is a great idea, and we want to make this happen. Without that, nothing would work. Absolutely. Oh, sorry, I'm not sure we have to go for questions. Any questions? Thank you all. Seriously.
I do have one question. I spent a lot of time in the last probably 3 months looking at the IDP technology that offers exactly really cool. One of the problems that I'm wondering if you can manage to overcome is that if your app is constantly searching, how do you deal with the memory, or how do you deal with the power on your phone problem?
Well, it's funny you bring up iBeacon. iBeacon is remarkable technology for a number of reasons. Probably the most important thing about iBeacon is that it's not your app that consumes the power. What Apple has done is the algorithms for detecting iBeacons is on the operating system level. And they're constantly searching for that all the time. Not just for your app, for all apps. What that means is that it scans every minute or two looking for beacon signals, and it does so in an extremely power efficient manner. Extremely power. In fact, there's almost negligible battery impact by having your Bluetooth on anymore. 85% of people actually leave the Bluetooth on all the time now, but there's almost no battery hit. Where the battery usage comes from is if you decide to constantly hitting up the Wi-Fi all the time, because the amount of power required for the Wi-Fi antenna is dramatically higher than what you get for just iBeacons or Bluetooth energy in general. And there's a difference between the old classic Bluetooth 3.0 and lower, which is pretty power consumption by comparison, but the new 4.0 standard for low energy Bluetooth is incredibly power efficient. That's why you can have these little Estimo beacons and that sort of thing that will sit and broadcast beacon signals for literally a year on a watch battery. It's incredible.
In your business plan, did you take into the fact of legal social consequences of this technology?
Yes, we did. As I said, we've met with.
Specifically? Business plan. Was it considered?
Yes, it was. Yes, and there's been a massive amount of support actually from lawyers and the police as well, special weapons and tactics people, and more interestingly, also specifically the missing persons department also in Toronto. They had some great comments about the implications of that. And they were the ones that recommended we look seriously into finding not just children, but Alzheimer's patients.
I just had thoughts on the way I see your business model is the one factor that will affect your user growth is the fact that there has to be a certain critical mass of people using the app in order for it to work, right? And one of the restrictions is the fact that people need to download your app. is it possible to actually talk to like apps which are more common and get them to be partner with you somehow? So let's say everybody can use their phones with you. Does that make sense?
Yes, they're talking about like having like a security blanket SDK that's anybody with an app could go and download, integrate it into their app, and also turn their app into something that looks for lost children?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, look, there's a whole bunch of developers in here too. Yeah, look to our website in hopefully a month or two. And that is absolutely something we want to look into. The more phones we can get this on, the better. And from the support that we've seen so far, there are people and companies out there that are willing to talk to us and integrate an SDK and say, yes, we would love to like help support and like, find lost children. And if we could one day we could get like an app like Starbucks or Facebook to integrate our SDK, I can't tell you how I would love to see that happen. Questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. Oh,
Mark?
Yeah, we guys thought about, like, I don't know how big this can have to be, but maybe for the kids, like, returning jewelry or, like, a little toy or something, so something they would carry that's kind of more, I think it's attached to their body, right? And I'm like, you and you can market it and sell it as, like, hey, security jewelry or whatever.
no, that's also a great idea. There is a reason why the device that Ernest and I have in their hands is this large. This is designed primarily to pass the child's 3-year-old anti-choking requirements in the US and Canada. Being a small startup, we couldn't afford to launch one specific device, so we went with one that covered the entire market initially. But yes, we would love to do like custom, devices, for older age groups, because we could make it smaller. Absolutely, and for teenagers that aren't swallow it, that'd be perfect. Make something even smaller. And in fact, there will be a software version that runs purely on an iPod at some point, and also on an iPhone, so that you don't even need to have our device. It'll be integrated into hardware that you already have. One last question?
What about publishing 3D printing templates? So you can buy a small device and build something around it.
That's really cool.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.